But hey, if you're wondering about the flood maps that have been talked about with FEMA and SEMA and how that could impact you if you own a home or a business here at Lake of the Ozarks, if your home would be in the new flood map, you would need flood insurance potentially. I talked with Stacy Shore, who is a local realtor and really has been fronting this, effort here locally. And she says that they're in a decent place of waiting right now following their big open house because SEMA has had to admit that they've used faulty data to redraw those initial maps.
That's a huge admission.
Correct. Now they used WSP is the company they contract for mapping the lake, and they've come out and said that they had faulty data, and so now they're supposed to be reissuing new maps. Now they've said allegedly they're going to be using the 2011 Corps of Engineers data to reissue these maps, and they could look very similar to the 2018 maps, which would be good because there'd be little changes. Now I want you to look on screen. This is a graphic that Lake Expo had up and Stacy Shore shared with me. This is the new floodplain if it went through as they initially had been throwing around.
Right, yeah.
With that faulty data. That's important to know that it was faulty data they used. If you look at the red on this map, that's where the floodplain would be changed to. Now, most of these homes have lomas, and they're not even in the 100-year floodplain. There's no reason they would fall in that new maps. And so now they've issued faulty data. Short credits the Trump administration's executive order to halter these government bodies from using climate science to reissue or redraw flood maps. Essentially, President Trump has forced their hand. SEMA and FEMA would now have to prove they used reliable data to redraw those maps, which they're not going to be able to do most likely. So now they're back at the drawing board. Stacy Shore went on to credit Ike Skelton, James Gohagan, and the Republican Central Committee. She said, have you seen those new preliminary maps that they put out there? We're waiting to see if they formally release those new ones and if they look closer to the 2018 maps. And if they don't, they're going to have to be able to prove, SEMA and FEMA is going to have to be able to prove that their contractor, WSP, has used good data and proved to them how they came about the changes they're proposing. What data got you to this conclusion, and they have not been able to do that. Now, our local watchdogs are watching closely. It'll be interesting. The extending of these maps is actually 2026, but interesting is their initial proposal for 2023. They were already in the preliminary stages, supposed to have it out in 2024, but now, in my opinion, they've kind of got caught. They're backtracking, and they're trying to figure out what maps they're going to put out. And the problem that we see is the Department of Public Safety, their press release is misleading towards our locals as far as like, oh, you guys just don't understand, like, we'll get back to you. It's like, no, our local watchdogs do understand. They're highly educated. The Lake of the Ozarks has been here before with Ed Schmidt and Lynn Farrell and some of these individuals. And it's people that in the business world may not even see eye to eye or vote the same, but when they're fighting for their community, they come together. And I don't think these government agencies are used to that. And so it'll be interesting to see. But right now, I think our local watchdogs have basically fought on our behalf and have us in the driver's seat. Now, it doesn't mean that we need to fall asleep at the wheel. We need to be ready because when these new preliminary maps come out, there is going to be another open house or a town hall. They're thinking probably middle of May. We're going to keep everybody posted on location, but the commission's office will be there. The Republican Central Committee will be there. And I'm very intrigued to see when they come out with these new maps after admitting and saying, well, we use faulty data. That's why those maps were so extreme. We came out with those. Well, what is your contractor? Why are you using them? And are they still the ones you're using? Because prove to me, why did they come up with these crazy, insane numbers where the new floodplain at Lake of the Ozarks would be 6 feet over the driving surface of the Bagnell Dam?
Yeah.
I think there needs to be some accountability.
That's unbelievable that their flood map would be over the top of the dam. That goes to show you how absurd it is.
And they said, hey, we faulty data.
Yeah. Oh, whoops.
How do we get faulty data?
Right.
They can't answer that question.
But this is a really scary thing of governmental overreach under a bad administration, in my opinion anyway, where they decide, oh, we're going to make a whole bunch of free money here by making people get flood insurance. and just come up with a map where, you know, a whole lot of people are going to have to get this insurance.
Since you